Good morning and welcome to Talking Point. My name is Sean Michael Small. Once again, happy to have the important discussions of the day. Don't mind that some people, like to be on a lot of nonsense, including these days, one Vladimir Putin, as well as, let's not forget, our own local politicians. But let's just go back to Mr. Putin. What's going on in Russia is a real tragedy right now as Russian forces seems to be advancing on the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. And it begs the question, how reliable is our diplomatic relationships, particularly with the nations involved? And what does this mean for the future of our country? Because the world is a global village. And as I have said before on this show, because of the pandemic, certain vulnerabilities and excesses are being revealed. We've seen it in coups in Myanmar, as well as, I believe, in Africa. We've seen it in civil unrest in Cuba, Venezuela, and Colombia, although one could argue Venezuela has been like that for a long time now. And now, even in Russia, there are citizens protesting against their own leadership, all the while the soldiers there are marching with the dogma that Ukraine belongs to Russia and they're merely reclaiming it. But from whom is the interesting question. As hundreds of Ukrainian citizens are basically rallying behind their government and arming themselves, the question is, in a modern military battlefield, citizen soldiers with very little training and nothing but a rifle, how much can they do beyond getting themselves killed with the barrage of artillery that Russia is using when they advance their forces? We do have to ask, what will the sanctions against Russia mean to us? We alluded to it the other day with regards to the price of grain. Both Russia and Ukraine are grain producers. What will this mean for the price of food for all lower income, lower stage economic nations? What will this mean? Just yesterday, we had a news report on News on the Hour with regards to the rising cost of food in Kenya, I believe. Nations like that, not just ours, we seem to forget in TNT there are nations worse than ours. Of course, the great specter is if this thing will expand, and what does that mean for our relations as we try to remain neutral? We have engaged in both diplomatic and economic relationships with the People's Republic of China and the US. Obviously, we have not shied away or done anything to distance ourselves from Eastern Europe. What happens now when we have to make a choice and a stand? And can we rely on the US or the EU or the members of the Commonwealth to support whatever stand we decide we have to take? Will we get involved in sanctions, particularly if this gets expanded? There is the fear that what happens to Ukraine could be happening in Taiwan. Will there be more economic sanctions then? And will we be directly targeted due to our economic entanglement with the Middle Kingdom? These are things we do need to look out for so that we could understand what's going on in the world around us. There are times when our own leaders make mistakes or act even with malicious intent. And then there are times that we need to understand that business as usual, yes, it went out the window a long time ago with the pandemic. But now we have reached the third year. And this is the third stage. And we do have to now prepare ourselves for what might be. Because as the last 2 years have shown, we can't predict what's going to happen to the world. A lot of people did not think that this conflict would have actually happened, including Ukraine. They did not expect it to get this far. We can't take it for granted that it will go no further. When we return, we'll have a lot more local topics to talk about, and my co-host will be joining me. But stay tuned, you're watching Talking Point on WESN Content Capital.
Alexa, can you play my song, please?
Every day across Trinidad, Flow is connecting communities near and far. Our dedicated teams are always working to keep you connected to the world beyond your doorstep. Improving internet accessibility across Trinidad, one home at a time. At Flow, we work hard for you, so you work hard for your family on the largest high-speed network. Connecting you to more every day with Flow.
Do you think you have what it takes to be a comedian?
For a passenger to come in a taxi with $100 and don't say nothing, I see driver get takeaway on stretcher for that.
WESN is giving you the platform to showcase your comedic skills.
What? I don't really know how to play guitar.
If you think you have jokes, then WESN is the place for you.
You know you left the house in your old Bermuda jersey and your march pants, track pants quite up on the belly but Beyonce. Beyonce was never in cadets, no!
Our platform provides a space for creatives to express themselves. And now it's your turn.
How to watch you go, man? With a smile.
Give us a call, 628-5835. We bring the laughs, you bring the jokes. Hey, you wanna jam?
You sure, boy?
Yo, what we jam?
Bruh, let me read that script. Hey, are they ready for We Comedy Jam? We taking it live. Come on live with us now. Come join us for special taping of We Comedy Jam at Kaiser Blues Cafe. We bring the laughs, you walk with the drinks money. We Comedy Jam live tapings at Kaiser Blues Cafe. Send us your name to get listed. We Comedy Jam, only on WESN Content Capital.
So, we not jamming then?
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we see you next time.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point. And of course, I am joined by my co-host, the great Mr. Keaton Shaw. Good morning, Keaton. How is your day going?
Good morning, Sean. My day started off very eventful. First of all, good morning to the viewer and welcome back to Talking Point on the Content Capital. Pardon my missing the introduction to the program. You will find out why momentarily. But to start things off, this is perhaps the most grey, dark, wet Carnival Friday that...
oh, it's Carnival Friday?
Yes, it is.
I didn't even realize.
It's Carnival Friday.
I didn't realize.
probably the most damp, wet, grey Carnival Friday I've ever experienced, and I don't know if it's the same for you. It certainly goes that if you're jumping up in the street, you possibly can have a wet fet today, given the weather. That was a very bad joke on my part. Nobody got it. But anyway, considering all factors, is it a sign of the times? Well, that is just trying to dampen and depress your Friday even more. So I will refrain from doing that. Instead, I'll just use the news and the latest happening in Trinidad and Tobago to do that on my behalf. And that is, we're taking a look this morning at the fire services in Trinidad and Tobago. And over the last couple months, we've seen many large fires. And fires are always destructive. But the lives lost as well due to fire is incredible. The first major event, at least, was what took place in Bamboo a couple weeks ago, actually.
Yes, with the businesses, yes.
With businesses. And so many questions came out after that fire happened, whether or not they had permits to have those buildings erected on that piece of land, who owned the land, was the land leasehold or freehold, it was meant for agricultural, where's town and country planning. And then there were even issues in relation to the fire hydrants, in which fire services had no fire hydrants in the area, which led to their response time being under par with what could have actually transpired if they had the necessary resources available to them. And that was also questioned by another show host who indicated that he actually contacted the relevant authorities on numerous occasions, and up till this point he has not gotten a response. In fact, he indicated that between 2010 and 2015, the Member of Parliament for that area promised that they were going to work on it, and he didn't hear anything from them. So this morning we're exploring one of the issues, because on Wednesday afternoon in Beetham Gardens, a 9-year-old girl lost her life due to fire. On Sunday, an elderly couple lost their life due to fire. In the first instance on Sunday, it was due to bad roads, and the Minister of Works and Transport stating that the road was not designed for heavier vehicles, and so it was impassable for trucks. Now, that's poor on the part of the Minister of Works and Transport. And needless to say, it's not entirely his fault, because I don't think that road was built under his tenure, but needless to say, any ministry should do an evaluation of the road conditions in Trinidad and Tobago and get the necessary works done. If a road is impassable for heavier vehicles, such as, say, TNTEC trucks, fire services, or even a truck-borne water supply when WASA unfortunately cannot give a great service, then if that's in any area where residents reside, then that's poor on the part of the relevant authorities.
Well, hold on. This road in particular, you said that it might not have even been constructed by Works and Transport. Who actually, is it an official road? Is it a dirt road? Or
when
you're
I
not
say
entirely
Works
sure?
and Transport, under this administration, that's what I'm saying. Under
so
this
it should be a
administration,
proper road.
It should be a proper road.
The reason why I ask that is, there's always the chance of circumstances that we can't anticipate. Part of it is the fact that we know the airport situation in Tobago and having to pay off people for building on what we would assume to have been airport land. We know that town and country planning is not always doing their job. So we can't always assume that every house we see and every building we see and every location that it's in, it has been properly approved, or that the approvals went through the proper evaluation process, because people, it is alleged that even HEC project has been constructed in a floodplain. So I'm not saying that it's their fault. I'm saying that this is one example of a time when we do need to find out exactly what the approvals were and who did not necessarily do their job. Because if you allow citizens to build where they should not build and don't have any sort of regulatory body to tell them, hold on, this place floods, this place doesn't have access to proper infrastructure, this place is not safe. I mean, we take it for granted, we see people building on some steep hillsides, and, are there any concerns for the safety of the houses that we construct? I'm not entirely sure. We take it for granted. And then when we don't get the services that we feel entitled to, well, I'm not saying it's the services' fault. It could still be a government official's fault.
Now, with that, it goes into another question. Yes, we always go back to that. We have a role to play as well in terms of where we're constructing our homes. For example, I clearly remember it was in the middle of last year, individuals in southern parts of Trinidad who constructed their homes, there was a landslide and a landslip that was actually now consuming their homes. They had nowhere to go and they were calling on the relevant authorities to assist them. And yes, okay, you want assistance and fair enough, but at the same time, if you don't have town and country planning, does that mean that the assistance that would have been afforded to you, should you have had all regulatory approvals, be given? There are prices to pay for these things, but I don't want to go too much into that. In relation to the St. Julian Road incident, it's difficult for a Minister of Works and Transport to come out and state that because it's hard for the family to accept such. This was a
Well, not just that.
And by the way, the detour that they had to take was about 14 minutes.
So technically speaking, yes, the cause of the problem might not be from your office, but you are still responsible for the infrastructure.
And that is what I'm saying. It's difficult for any individual to swallow that coming from the minister.
And the thing is, certain basic things should be in place. And I understand, yes, it's not rated for someone's personal truck or for a cargo truck, but at the end of the day, fire tenders do need to be able to pass. So
the biggest issue
we
for
don't
me,
really have a choice there. It has to be done.
The biggest issue for me is the fact that we have to wait for something to happen, and we have to wait for some major incident in which unfortunately an individual or individuals lose their life in order for anything to be done. It happened, just segueing very quickly, because we have a couple of sound bites to play for you that came from the president of the Fire Association, Leo Ramki, soon. But just to segue, another example of something happening and action only taking place after, which goes to show that we're not proactive in any sense at all. We're reactive. I think it was about a week and a half ago that a Tunapuna lady was driving along some road. I honestly forgot. I think it was in Pitiboo or something like that. And her brakes gave way. Her daughter was in the backseat of the car. Her brakes failed on her. And she ended up going over a precipice, missing houses, landing. She died. Her daughter suffered injuries to the extent where bones were broken and whatnot, but she survived. But only after that had happened, then the San Juan Regional Corporation, San Juan Lavatil Regional Corporation, they then started constructing a barrier. That's only when it took place. And if I'm getting the location mixed up, please forgive me and somebody correct me later on, because I only followed up on this story a couple days ago. But I'm just saying again, we are 10 days after the accident took place. That's when they decided we need to put a barrier here. When, from what I understand, it's been stated many times before by residents that they needed a barrier there.
I think, and this is, I'm not speaking about the lady whose brakes gave out. I think just in general, people could be reactive in their everyday life. You know, and that's somewhat understandable. You, responsible for you, right? I'm not saying that's the reason why her brakes failed. That's not directed at her. That is just a general observation. Why I say that is because when it's your job now to anticipate problems and to prepare for accidents and disasters, you can't afford to just apply how you live your life and what you think is normal and fine to a situation. But more importantly, the way how you say reactive, I think that there's a bigger reason for that. Yes, we are reactive, but I think now more so, we can't be proactive. And the sound bites are going to allude to one of the reasons why we can't be as proactive, because there's too many needs and not enough money.
I don't accept that. I'm a citizen. And yes, we're in this position, and the reason why I don't accept that we can't afford it, or there's a reason why we can't be proactive, is because I understand that the pandemic has costed us. But that situation is not only afforded to Trinidad and Tobago, it's globally, right? That's one thing we can understand. Secondly, this is something, as you mentioned before, that was there. This existed before the pandemic. And because it existed before the pandemic, when the pandemic came into play, it exposed the reality of the situation. Or need I say, it further concretized the reality of a pre-existing situation. And it has now allowed us to use the pandemic as an excuse. And I use the word excuse because in many instances, in my opinion, when a state of emergency transpired and you had a lockdown, government work still continued, national security still continued, TNTech operations continued, WASO operations continued. You couldn't tell me when the roads were shut down in the middle of the night that the road works couldn't happen. There was opportunity over this pandemic for such works to be done so that it wouldn't disrupt daily life. It would have been a more smooth, efficient process. And I'm sure that we could have found the funds. We found the funds in many instances for things that were not necessary. So I can't accept that as a regular citizen as an excuse. Fast forwarding now to the fire that transpired on Wednesday afternoon in Beetham, in which a 9-year-old lost her life. The fire services stated that to the extent of the fire, they're not even sure when they arrived if they could have saved the little girl. But there is one issue that they have been having that has actually made their job 10 times harder and has also disrupted the effectiveness of them executing their duties. And that is with a basic requirement from my research and understanding in relation to fighting fires. And that is breathing apparatus devices. You've seen it before, I'm sure, if you would have followed certain programs. I'm not talking about the movies that you see on television, but there are programs that highlight these things. Firefighters often carry tanks on their back, oxygen tanks. They also carry masks. It helps them to breathe an environment that is smoke-filled and toxic, and that they can do their duties much better. And in fact, it helps save lives. And yesterday in an interview, President of the Fire Services Association, Leo Ramkissoon, highlighted this. And he did his very best. He stated, I don't want to be insensitive and I don't want to come across as though I'm pushing any particular agenda. My condolences to the family and I sympathize. But we have to raise this issue because it's not the first time and I don't think it's going to be the last time. So there are some clips. Let's take a look at breathing apparatus. The first clip in which he spoke about the breathing apparatus. So
one of the shortcomings that we continue to suffer with in the fire service is, as I would have indicated in the month of December when I was last here with you, is still the issue of the breathing apparatus sets. Now, I just want to make it clear that even if we had the breathing apparatus sets, based on the reports that I have gotten, I don't believe that the officers would have been able to save the life that was lost, because the fire was advanced enough that it may likely not have been the case that we would have been able to save her.
Take a look at the second clip one time.
It's glaringly obvious that from all the video footage that you see on social media for the fire that occurred at the Bamboo recently and other fires we had, even up to last night, we had fires the officers attended to. We continue to be without breathing apparatus sets. And again, for the benefit of the audience, the breathing apparatus sets comprised of the air tank that the officer has on his back, that has a mask attached to it, that is on the face of the officer, and allows him to breathe fresh air and able to go into smoke-filled environments to perform rescue and other firefighting operations and so on. So without that piece of equipment, he has to stay a much further distance from the actual smoke-filled environment where he may be more effective in terms of fighting the fire, reducing the effects of the fire, and more importantly, to save life where needed. I don't want to be insensitive at all to the hurt and the pain that persons would be suffering in these circumstances, and I don't want to use the circumstances to just to advance a particular agenda.
Now, you just heard from President of the Fire Service Association, Leo Ramkissoon, and he made it very quite clear in the last 10 seconds of what you would have heard him saying is, I don't want to push a particular agenda. And often on this program, we question the timing of individuals. People might say this is rather, his timing is off and he's making excuses on behalf of the fire services. Now, whilst people will have that opinion, I do share in his concern that personally, I've followed these updates over the last couple of months. And this is not the first time that he has raised this issue of breathing apparatus devices when tackling these situations. So he also made it clear, I'm not entirely sure if we would have been able to save the girl due to the extent of the fire when we arrived at the scene. And he says, you know, look at social media clips, and that alone speaks for itself. It's amazing that we're now using social media to our advantage, because all the time it goes to disinformation and misinformation. But I don't think the video clips will lie.
So the thing is, and he says he doesn't want to make it a political issue. He doesn't want to make it seem as though he's taking advantage of the situation. The unfortunate reality is, this is what happens when we don't have a healthy political environment with active participation and transparency. And now, people who are not supposed to be politicians, because he is a technical expert there to do the job, or at least his members are, they now have to be their own advocates for equipment that they need, which is a hell of a way to run an emergency service, because that's the whole point of emergencies. You don't know what's going to come up in an accident. You know, you can't say, well, accidents and emergencies are only going to be limited to this always and we will never need it. No. You're going to need it unexpectedly. That's the nature of the business. And more importantly, he is not the first association head that have had to speak out. And we now have to wonder what's going on. And if we had more active participation across the board and hold the political body to account, we would potentially have less of these things. But it's funny, he says he doesn't want to make it a political issue. Too many people in the country say, well, I don't want to be involved in politics because blah, 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 blah. It's too dirty, it's too corrupt, nothing ever gets done, so why bother? Well, when you don't bother, when you're dependent on the fire service to come and save your life, and they're equipped, then you'll wish you did something.
Now, he's not using this as an excuse for what transpired on Sunday and Wednesday, but he's highlighting the issues in terms of the cost associated with these apparatus versus the cost of one life. In fact, he elaborated further in that interview yesterday morning and when he spoke about funding. Let's hear from him now in relation to funding.
The information that we continue to get is that the state would have been quite tardy in terms of providing the allocated funds for the management of the fire service to be able to make the necessary purchases of spare parts to repair the existing sets that we have and to purchase new sets where necessary. So it's really a funding issue. What is needed is simply small spare parts that is at a minimal cost, like O-rings, the little rubber rings that you would need to seal hoses and so on. You need minor pieces of spare parts and so on. And well, they add up over time and they add up and they have a cost attached to it. So it's not the exorbitant tens of thousands, but there is some cost. The bigger issue here, Fazir, is that, for example, when you have a fire like we had in the Bamboo, you are talking losses in the millions, sometimes in the hundreds of millions. And when you look at the cost-benefit analysis, you can't put a cost to life.
So he's absolutely right. You cannot put a cost to life. Now, what is a bit tricky here is him then stating that we need funding. The funding has been delayed, but it's not going to cost much because we just basically need to buy spare parts in order to keep the equipment we have working and working well. But in an earlier part of that interview yesterday, he stated that how, well, you know, for one truck, we only have one device. And sometimes when you have 2 and 3 trucks attending to a situation, we only have 3 devices. So in a sense, he's kind of conflicting himself a little bit, stating that we don't have enough devices, but then he's stating, well, we have the devices, but we just need money and funding in order to maintain these devices.
I think he's basically pointing out 2 tiers. There's the minimal tier. We just need to maintain what we have. But then, you know, you could extrapolate, well, what they have, is it really enough? Now, with regards to the budget issue, here's the thing. The argument you made earlier is correct. And this goes back to the topic of do we really need a taste of carnival when it's really amounting to nothing? Look at the results we got now. Now imagine what the fire service could have done with that money. However, this is where I think the situation is not so simple. Now, if you take money allocations that were unnecessary, that didn't really give us much returns, like Taste of Carnival, fine. There's no excuse there. That could have been used for something more important. However, here is the reality that we face. They had shortfalls in the police budget for a couple of years before COVID. They had shortfalls in the Ministry of Education's budget paying AFCL and now MTS. There are shortfalls potentially with the Ministry of Health with regards to giving workers their equipment or even some of their allowances or pay. And I'm sure that there are other areas. I mean, Mr. Fisherman from Claxton Bay, he talks repeatedly about how it seems as though the Coast Guard boats can't be maintained and they don't have fuel to conduct their patrols or even training at times. There are a lot of issues that have major monetary needs. So I understand that something is going to be left out. That said, your point earlier, we did not need things like a Taste of Carnival, even at 15 million, and I'm sure there are other programs that we now have to question. I will always come back to the $1.2 billion airport when our tourism industry not only is going nowhere fast right now, but was in decline before the pandemic.
Now, here's where I'll take bigger issue, because that is just one speck of a bigger picture, and it's a major issue as well when life is concerned. But every year, we get a budget from the government. Every year, they outline what money is going to be spent. Every year, they also highlight the previous financial year, where they spent their money, and they give us an idea of all the costs. Now, with that, they also make a prediction, I suppose, an estimate of what they expect. And over the last couple of years, from our understanding from various experts, the Minister of Finance overshoots his budget, overshoots his estimates. In fact, he inflates his estimate to something that is unrealistic. Now, that is a huge issue, because when you give these allocations and you promise this money going to this ministry or this authority, you expect something in return. But do we see the money that is estimated every year to each of these ministries and authorities? Do we see any value for it? In fact, where's the money going? Again, I pointed out, anytime you spend your money, you get a receipt. Why is it that anytime the government spends money, we don't get any sort of accounting or any sort of method to say, this is how much money we spent? We just get their words verbally. And could you really trust any government member right now in these times after all the stories we've heard? And I'm even talking on the part of the opposition as well. Could you really trust anything they say?
Look how long it took to fix the sewage leak in Beetham. Is it even fixed yet? I don't even know.
It's in its final phases.
It's in its final phases.
Yeah.
One of the issues is we always talk about the money. And by we, I mean the stakeholders who are public on the issues. They didn't get the money. They didn't give the money. They don't have money to give. We don't actually hear from the important stakeholders about things like trying to be more efficient with the money, trying to be more efficient with the provision of services so we get more bang for our buck. But just trying to be more efficient with administration so government payments are not tardy. I speak as a subcontractor to a contractor who basically had to tell the government, no, I can't do anymore because y'all don't pay me. So I just can't take any more work from you. So the thing is, too many stakeholders, yes, there's the money question, and it's part of the issue. But they allow the narrative to be focused on that. And I think it works to the benefit of a lot of stakeholders involved who don't want to put any time and effort because they're lazy. So obviously, I'm not talking about the public here. I'm talking about all of the other stakeholders involved in the public sector.
Now, the government, according to the Minister of Finance, has spent over $5 billion on COVID-19. How? Exactly where? And they've justified it as well. That $5 billion is a wonderful figure, and just based off of the breakdown that the Minister of Finance gave us in October last year, I think it was around September of October, in terms of the social expenses, it doesn't add up near to $5 billion.
Honestly, we need to find out how much more money than the Ministry of Health's budget which was reallocated for COVID.
But adding to that,
that's
as
what
well,
we need to know. What is
yes,
the
I
extra?
understand we have money that was allocated in terms of funding medical health care and in terms of hiring new doctors. I still don't see how $5 billion was spent on that. $5 billion didn't help improve any of our systems or any of
I
our
would assume
pre-existing healthcare infrastructure.
Honestly,
it didn't.
I would assume that they're including payroll. Payroll to some extent that they would have already had to pay because they were already pre-existing employees.
Will come from reoccurring expenditure. If you're hiring new doctors and nurses, I understand that that is included in this figure. But telling the nation that you spent $5 billion on COVID-19 means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Furthermore, you're spending $30 million on a Taste of Carnival. It has been touted.
15.
Well, a total of 30, because you've got 15 and then you've got 15. But you've got 15 and you've got 15 million, right? 15 million for the various sectors and then 15 million in terms of sponsorship and so on and so forth. We still don't even know how much...
basically when there was outcry for the budget and they dropped it down, they just backdoored the rest.
So we still don't even know who constructed those pods and who got the contract and were those pods constructed in advance? And it seems from everything we've heard, yes. But adding to that, you're spending $30 million on a Taste of Carnival, which the NCC chairman has indicated that everyone will benefit from. I can't really see that happening. Yes, I want Carnival. I want us to go back to a sense of normalcy. But won't it be better if we spend that $30 million in equipping our services, our national services, national security services, fire, police, border patrol, all those services? Wouldn't it be better if we allocated that $30 million that you're spending, of which we're getting no returns?
I don't know about the border patrol. That seems like a
no returns
waste of money at this point. How that's being run.
Well, it seems as though they need to purchase
fire. Yes,
they need to purchase some aiming targets and work on that. But allocate money to those authorities so that they're better equipped to deal with this. Because honestly, if I'm spending my money, I hope to get some value in return, something called opportunity cost. I am not seeing any of that taking place. It seems as though we're spending $30 million of taxpayers' money on Carnival, a Carnival which I'm not going to benefit from, and I don't know if you're going to benefit from. $5 billion on COVID-19, and yet still, schools can't open, fire services don't have the necessary equipment, and
schools, how many teachers, the hard-working teachers, say that they have to go out of pocket for supplies? I have heard that way too often. But more importantly, Keaton, you have to remember, some, not all, some entertainers finally got a paycheck for entertaining. It's just interesting. I wonder, all the people who are advocating for the entertainers, did you go and partake in their services? But more importantly, I know it sounds harsh, but the industry has not been saved. This did not kickstart any saving of the industry there.
Listen, when you have somebody singing Pushback on the Bamboo Baby, I don't think that's entertainment. And honestly, if they're getting money for that, then anybody is a soca artist or an artist in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, you may like the song, but let's be realistic.
But more importantly, was that more important than the fire service being properly equipped?
Anyway, folks, we've kept our guest commentator waiting long enough. Unfortunately, we've restricted the time that they have with us this morning. We're going to take a very quick break now, and when we return, we're going to give them the opportunity to respond to what we would have viewed. We viewed it yesterday on Talking Point. It transpired on Tuesday in the Senate. This morning, they gave their response. Stay tuned to the program on WESN Content Capital.
Do you think you have what it takes to be a comedian?
For passenger to come in a taxi with $100 and don't say nothing, I see driver get takeaway on stretcher for that.
WESN is giving you the platform to showcase your comedic skills.
What? I don't really know how to play guitar.
If you think you have jokes, then WESN is the place for you.
You know you left the house in your old Bermuda jersey and in march pants, track pants, quite up on the belly of Beyonce. Beyonce was never in cadets, no!
Our platform provides a space for creatives to express themselves. And now it's your turn.
How to watch you go, man? With a smile.
Give us a call, 628-5835. We bring the laughs, you bring the jokes. Hey, you wanna jam?
You sure, boy?
You want we jam?
Bruh, let me read that script. Hey, are they ready for We Comedy Jam? We taking it live. Come online with us now. Come join us for special taping of We Comedy Jam at Kaiser Blues Cafe. We bring the laughs, you walk with the drinks money. We Comedy Jam live tapings at Kaiser Blues Cafe. Send us your name to get listed. We Comedy Jam, only on WESN Content Capital.
So we're not jamming then?
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Now, we do apologize. We were due to be joined by a guest commentator this morning, and unfortunately, they are having some difficulties. And at the same time, unfortunately, we did go a bit overboard in terms of our timing, so they would not have had much time to make their contribution. So forgive us this morning for that. We will postpone it until next week. In the meantime, there are a couple of things that we like to highlight before we head to the 9 o'clock news. The first is that, haven't you noticed in the last couple weeks that home invasions and robberies have exploded? Now, I was speaking to an individual last night who indicated to me this is nothing new. Around Christmas or Carnival, it's generally the season for home invasions and robberies. That is simply not acceptable, at least now. It really isn't.
What is spending it on?
Exactly. I guess spending it on a pod. You know, let's put my facetious mind and comment to the side at this point. And let's be realistic. This is really, really alarming and concerning, not only to the extent of which is happening, but now it seems as though criminals do not even care anymore. And forgive me, you may be saying, well, Keaton, that has always been the case. But to the extent where nothing happens, the homeowner does not attack you, they run from you, but you still shoot them. One example was yesterday. Businesswoman Nicole Moses died while protecting her niece and nephew from 2 armed bandits who entered her yard. And she was scabbering them on the inside, after which she was shot in the neck and chest. They fired at her. She was running away from them. They fired at her. Now, another individual within the house was able to shoot and kill the bandits. He was the holder of an FUL. But here's where I take issue with this. According to the police, the two suspects have been identified as Joshua Haywood, 21, of Morva, who police said had 8 pending cases before the courts for robbery and larceny. The second suspect, Joshua Blackman, of 24 years old, of Erica Street, Laventille, had 13 pending cases of possession of arms and ammunition, robbery and larceny. 1 gun was recovered at the scene.
So
what's the issue here?
Basically, what you're telling me is we don't have a healthy justice system that knows how to function without putting people on remand and just keeping them there.
Forget
right?
Justice system for one moment.
Right, so what's specific to this case, I think it's 2 things here. One, you have people who are not, for lack of a better phrase, professional criminals. I think a lot of it is as a result or consequence of our economic reality. First of all, we all kind of know what was happening. There were various programs. Some of them had a better cover or more justifiable reasoning or logic behind it than others. But at the end of the day, when too much of your workforce is basically being propped up by the government, not just this government, in fact, this government for once might be the least guilty with regards to this, just because they had to deal with the fallout. But when we have different programs or hiring too much staff at different public sector institutions, the long and short is when you have too many programs to pump free money into the system. You know, we've heard the expression before, we like freeness, freeness, freeness. Well, when we're under economic strain, the freeness will stop. And when the freeness stops and people who think that they're entitled to money for little to nothing, well then what's going to happen? Some of them will figure it out. Some of them will not have any marketable skills outside of the connections that they got to get whatever freeness they could get before. And in the absence of marketable skills, they will get desperate. And desperate people are much more willing to break the law. And to some extent, I think this is just the smaller, more microeconomic version of what we're seeing with all sorts of unrest around the globe, including the invasion of Ukraine. We're seeing people who are under economic strain, and they feel, for whatever reason, this is one of their only, if not their only recourse to try to take from others. And then they go there sloppily and kill people for no reason on top of that.
Okay, so you said a lot, and you missed the point I was making.
Okay.
The point I was making, apart from a weak justice system, is the fact that the police come out and state to the public, they had 8 pending cases, they had 13 pending cases, and they were allowed to just be free. And that goes beyond justice system. This goes now on to policing. Because you can't have police monitoring individuals 24/7, but you would at least expect that individuals with 13 and 8 cases before them. Isn't it that we have to check in with the police station, our nearest police station, twice a week or something like that?
I don't know if you have to once you're on bail, but the point is...
No, if you're on bail, you have to.
The police have the... Well, right, but they check in, and that's still not going to stop them. A check-in is not going to stop.
No, it's not going to stop them. But I don't even know if they want bail.
Right, but they know that they want bail.
No, it doesn't state that. They said they had 8 cases. They said they had 13 cases, which means they knew, but they didn't state they were out on bail. That's the thing.
My point is whether they're out on bail or not, they could check in at 6 and then try and do a whole evasion at 8.
And I completely understand that. You can't monitor somebody 24/7.
They have the accusations level against them, which to me means that at least that part of the TTPS, they did their job. The question is, how are they out with this amount of accusations level against them? That's the question we have to ask. Did they get bail? Why did they get bail? Or how are they out just with these accusations without bail? I'm not an expert. I don't understand that myself. However, I think the cause, we're going to see more of this, Keaton. I'm telling you.
I know
the freeness has dried up.
I know
and we are a society that is too dependent on freeness.
You know, there are people who are going to disagree with me. But I am no longer concerned with people being angry at these comments I'm about to make. I am it's so unfortunate that this individual had to lose their life. And somebody was expressing to me yesterday, well, you don't know, it could have possibly been a hit. Well, hopefully a police investigation would be done, and, you know, that comes to light. It may not be made public, it may not come out in the public domain, but if the family and the police have some sort of investigation, we'll find out. I am just happy that 2 of these individuals are now dead. I'm very, very happy that, and that sounds so sadistic and draconian, but understand what I'm saying. The police are not doing their job in its entirety. I don't want to discredit everything. The justice system is absolutely frail and weak to the extent that you can just refer to it as a system where justice is granted to a very few. For example, a certain contractor who didn't even have to have his case defended by the party in the court simply because he was just granted the money right away.
I mean, it was 4 years late, but okay.
Individuals, 4 years late, but when did his case go to court?
I mean,
anyway,
to be fair, I have money that's like, I don't know, 6 years later.
That's a separate issue entirely. I am happy that these individuals are dead. And somebody tell me if I'm wrong in stating that.
Here's the slippery slope. Here's the slippery slope.
I
On
mean,
one hand, I agree with you. It shows criminal elements, or would be, because again, I think these potentially, if it was a hit, that's different. But if it was a home invasion, then to me, these are 2 sloppy amateurs. And it's good that sloppy amateurs will now understand you can't just go into someone's house. You might just get killed. Maybe you shouldn't do it because you don't know what you're doing. However, the slippery slope is vigilantism. Vigilantism, getting out of control, that's the slippery slope.
That is the slippery slope. And this
right?
is, I think we discussed this.
I don't even know, I can't think of what the consequences could be right now, but
I think we discussed this sometime mid-last year when we were seeing vigilantism
Yeah.
occurring more and more prominently
So one of the problems
Central.
with vigilantism is, back in the States when they had the protests against the police, right, there was an area that was essentially policing themselves, and they didn't want the police around because they didn't trust the police. Fine. But then 2 teenagers were joyriding. The people there got threatened and shot up the car and killed the 2 teenagers who were not looking to ram them or anything like that. They were just out on a joyride. So that's the problem with vigilante justice. You could get it wrong, and then what happens?
But in this instance, I'm happy because people say, well, innocent until proven guilty. There's enough evidence to me to say that they were guilty, or it has to go before a court of law. Okay, fine. Goes before a court of law. 13 cases. All right, we'll just slap on 2 more charges to you, and you're out.
But this is the process of committing the crime,
right? This is 13 more, and you're out.
I think this goes back to the other issue, right? Because we don't have the politics that you see in North America with regards to police shootings. Now, we do have suspicions on extrajudicial killings. However, at the end of the day, they can't all be good boys.
Well, it goes back to another
thing.
thing.
Not every single one of them.
It goes back to something else. I was watching the news, I think right here on WESN a couple of days ago. And again, what I'm saying may be deemed as very controversial, but it pops into my mind. A couple of days ago, a man chopped his wife, who is in critical condition now in hospital.
Yeah, right, I remember that, yeah.
He then ingested
I remember what you said too, yeah.
a poisonous substance, and he passed away. And then I looked at the clip from the family of the man who committed suicide and chopped his wife. It says, he wasn't a bad person, you know. He was very funny, he was very light. In fact, when he was arguing, you'd think he'd be joking just because of what he was saying and how he was saying it. And in my mind, maybe they're highlighting the individual he was. But in that particular moment, it doesn't really matter whether or not he was joking or laughing, you know. Somebody's life is on the brink in a critical condition.
I think the question they would have to ask is...
And he committed suicide. Why? Was he afraid?
What was he going through, and what could have been done to help people like him?
And I'm not in any instance denying that. This is where it goes back to gender-based violence and domestic violence, of which they've spoken about.
No, but yes, the comments, I understand. Yes, you're right.
The issue for me is...
Yeah, he did it. At the end of the day, he did it.
The issue for me is, right before we head to news, is simple. You don't know your child and you don't know your individual when the door is closed, when their backs are turned. In front of you, they may be the sweetest child. They may be so nice, loving and caring. He was a good boy. He didn't do me anything. He helped a neighbor wash down their yard.
To the community.
Right? But guess what? You don't know what that individual is like once they walk out that door. And it's hard to defend it based off of your experience alone.
Some of them know, you know.
You know,
some of them know.
So it's unfortunate. I'm so sorry. But folks, Come on, why are we hiding ourselves from reality?
When all of a sudden they get a new fridge, some of them know. What does he do for a living? He doesn't work, but you got a new fridge. You know.
Folks, let's break for news on the hour. When we return, we open up the phone lines this morning. Stay tuned to Talking Point.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. Let's open up the phone lines now. 623-9376, 622-9338. Call in and join us on Talking Point. Good morning, caller from Petty Valley.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton.
Good morning.
Morning.
Our BALAC is a joke. I always advertise for that.
Mm-hmm.
This case here in Westmoreland, one of the attackers was on 13 charges.
Yes.
The other one 9, I think.
8.
You know what would happen if there was held, they would have go in, get bail again, and come out on 14 charges and do the same mayhem.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Jacob, the Commissioner of Police, he's pleading for the bail act to be amended in Parliament. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the government tried, the opposition shut it down. The government tried on the anti-gang bill, the opposition
How
shut
does
it
he
down.
want? Do you know how he wants it amended? Is it that he wants?
He doesn't want bail to be guaranteed.
Okay,
No, what I'm
right.
saying, if somebody get hold once, twice,
Yeah.
no bail.
Yeah, 13 is obvious.
What the
It is
commissioner is
obvious.
stating is that you see how you can now apply it doesn't mean you'll be granted.
Exactly.
He doesn't want anybody to even be able to, and I agree with him to a certain extent. This is what I'm stating. The situation for me.
I agree with him.
Yeah, the situation for me,
bring a
caller.
gun- The government bring a gun, the gun law, if you get hold with a gun,
Yeah.
the opposition shut it down. If you get hold with a gun, stay inside for bail.
Yeah. This situation for me, caller, is yes, I agree with you. My problem is though is that the cost of remand and even the cost of an individual coming out after so many years and then suing the state, that needs to be sorted out.
Well, also
that
just the
needs to
fact
be
that
sorted out.
Keaton, we can have somebody coming out 13 times on bail.
No, I agree with you. I
And what
agree.
when they come outside they're doing? Going to church?
So right, so caller, the point is the situation, and it's not just about the mandatory no bail for murder accused. It's the other end of the spectrum too, where
Yeah, I'm not going to the murder
No, but-
one, I'm not going to
right,
that
but,
yet.
but
I'm
my
not going
point
to
is
that.
my point is the whole system, because it is unhealthy, nothing is really functioning properly. You're seeing it on both ends, where you're not getting bail and you're getting bail in the worst possible ways.
Remember, caller, bail is a bit. If you look at the entire system, is a bit
Sean,
of a
let
temporary
me say this
situation.
before, I don't want to stay too long in line for other callers. Sean mentioned all who agree to taste a carnival if they going to support
Yes,
it.
I
I
said
am
it.
one who agreed to taste a carnival. I went up and watched Japan, and I'm going up there tonight again.
Okay.
Excellent. Enjoy
So
it.
I am one who's supporting the artists who needs a paycheck in 2 years, just like you and Keaton have a paycheck. The artists didn't have a paycheck for 2 years. So I am one who support the Taste of Carnival and going up there and support it. I'm one.
I'm glad for your call. Enjoy it. Have a
have
good
a
time.
night.
Let us know how it was. Good morning, caller from Tobago. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
No, the guy who chopped his wife and killed himself, you have any idea how many years he was married to the lady?
No.
Well, he was married to the lady for more than 10 years, right? And his wife family said that he was they didn't say anything bad about him, right? Remember, the people who spoke about him was not his family, it was his wife's family, right? The man was also a mechanic. I don't think they gave any report that the woman was working. But what happened, our society is so sympathetic to women that they will overlook what men is going through.
Fair point.
And they'll and I am saying that for some reason, something had to happen for he to marry to a woman for so many years, and the woman family doesn't recognize any what you may say, any untoward behavior towards his wife, and then for him suddenly to do this thing.
But caller, doesn't that go back to what I was saying about you don't know what a person is like or what they're going through when the door is closed and when they walk out that door? You don't know?
Yes, because plenty people that suffer in silence.
So whether or not he was suffering something at home, or whether or not he had two different sides to him, we don't know and we will never know.
We
but
won't know.
it is
Yeah,
very,
boy.
it is.
I figure a man was suffering in silence.
You know,
because
you're
to
not
be
making.
married for so long and treating your family good and everything, and then off all of a sudden.
Well,
you see, caller,
strange,
it's premature for us to make those statements.
Yeah,
it's very premature for us to make those statements.
I think your point is valid because
generally,
we're venturing into areas that we don't know, but then you yourself also can't necessarily venture into areas that we can't be certain about either.
It's not a relationship that blossom just already. Is more than 10 years.
I know. But that in and of itself is not a be-all and end-all indicator of how the marriage is going.
That is why, caller, whilst your point from a general perspective is great.
If there was physical abuse and his wife family could have seen that, they would have mentioned that.
Not necessarily, caller.
We don't know if there was mental abuse.
We don't know that. There's a huge issue which Inspector Claire Guiling has pointed out, in which there are instances of exactly what you're speaking about, and families do not report it or do not say anything.
But Keyshawn, if I have a relationship with you and I am abusing you, the first person to come out and say I am abusing you would be your family.
You think so?
Only if they
definitely.
know. Only if they know, and that's Keaton's point.
Yes, exactly.
We're not sure if they were fully aware of their daughter and son-in-law's relationship. We ourselves
would know if it is 10 years. They would know.
No, caller, I'm sorry, I disagree with you because, as I said, there are many instances, and even outside of the police, when you speak to psychologists, of these things happening and people not being aware, family not being aware. My name is Keaton, by the way. But we do have, I am so sorry, we do have other callers. We're going to give them a chance. Have a good one.
Thank you for that call, caller.
Yes, good morning, caller from Shigonas.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good day.
Good day, Professor.
So it's sad listening to the program because all the problems you came up with, I gave you the answer before. Belong to the people who are responsible for oversight not doing their work.
Basically,
we know that,
Be reflected in the annual administrative report. But the last caller on bail seems to miss the point. If somebody 13 times on bail, there is a sentencing review system that the Chief Justice has. Somebody should be checking into that to see why that person was given bail. And my final point is one I should have made yesterday, but the person called in afterwards and a deal with land. What people don't realize in Trinidad, at least most of them, is all lands in Trinidad is owned by the state. The state do not sell land. They sell interest in land. And the highest interest you can buy in land is the freehold in possession, which is only subject to government regulation, which is one of the main problems you talked about earlier, with the government regulations with town and country planning not doing their work. Now, people can give lesser interest. You could sublease, and sometimes the state do that. The lease or the rent. One of the major reasons for renting was when a piece of land is not right for urban development, they would lease it out, they would rent it out for agriculture until that time is ready. Unfortunately, when we get independence, we stop doing that, and a lot of these lands still remain in agriculture. With a state lease, prior to independence, once you serve your notices on time, your new lease or tenancy would have been available for you the day it started. Today, as we hear, it takes an average of about 8 or 10 years, and the reason for that is not a guess. The government is examining this, and they cannot find the reason. And the reason is they themselves put in a condition that every lease, even renewal, must have a new land survey. Even if it was surveyed before, they want it surveyed again. Now, if the government wants to survey their lands, nothing wrong with that. You have something like bamboo settlements. You put in some surveyors and you hold the whole thing together, which will take about maybe 6 months. Instead, what they pass is every passing must be done individually, just to make work for certain people. And these are the things causing the problem.
Yeah.
Right? You have any questions?
No.
Have a good weekend, Professor.
We do have a caller.
I don't have a weekend, but because of you.
Have a wonderful weekend, Professor. We'll hear from you again on Monday morning. Good morning, caller from Tigger Martin.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
I just got to express my condolences to the Moses family.
Yeah.
That sad thing that happened yesterday. I used to live right in the back of them there in Western Circle. And the mother was a very nice person. I had known her. I didn't know the Sharon too well, but they are hard-working, decent people. And for this to happen to them like that, so saddened. It made me very sad to know that people have to live their lives so long and can't enjoy their life in peace anymore. I don't think it was a hit, because if it was a hit, they would have just, three of them wouldn't have come to start with. It would have just be one or two persons and make them hit, and they would have get out of there. But it could be an inside job, because a lot of money was missing. So that all depends on who was working with them and what nothing. But they are very decent people. That's all I can say about them. I'm saddened to know that. And thank you and good morning. Have a good day.
Have a good day and a good weekend, caller. Thank you very much.
I think one of the things we did not point out with this case is essentially the importance of the gentleman having a firearm to defend his family from the two home invaders. What did we just have not too long ago? We have a situ with the firearm user's license, with that whole part of the TTPS that is supposed to give it out to the public. So we've reached the point now where you want results, you have to do it yourself, right? Although you could still end up losing your life if you take it into your own hands. But there are some people who don't even have that choice, because this whole fiasco with the firearms user's license was allowed to happen. And I'm going to say that. It's my assumption, but I'm going to say it. It was allowed to happen until it became too much of a public problem that they had to put a stop to it.
You know, a couple things. First of all, in relation to what you're stating of the firearm user's license, a report was made public last month. Furthermore, we're still waiting on police findings. But based off of that independent report, why is it that up till this point we have no criminal charges laid against what was stated in that report?
Yeah.
But I want to respond to the caller from Tobago, because what he's saying still plays on my mind. But I will respond after this call from Santa Cruz. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Keaton. Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
So today's fantastic Friday, right?
Supposed to be.
Doesn't feel like it.
I know. When I listened to the fire commissioner last night, talk about this 9-year-old girl losing her life, and saw the news of the elderly couple that were killed in a fire because of, machinery can't pass and what have you. It begs me to wonder, when they get a budget, when they get their budget for the year, do they not utilize the budget to maintain, here's that word again, maintenance, to maintain their equipment and to replace whatever is missing or broken? I mean, I fail to understand why, as I said before, why these services, these public services, contract out the maintenance of their departments. That should be an integral part of your entire system. This is something that should go on year-round. And as Keaton pointed out, during the lockdown was the perfect time to drive around and see what's going on and repair what's going on. And talking about bridges that have only one side of a fence where the lady's car went over, and she ended up dying. If you drive along the Saddle Road, there's a bridge that has no railing on one side.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not properly lit. If you don't know the street, you could end up in the ditch too. You know, so again, I beg Trinidad and Tobago to clean their act up.
Caller,
you have a pitch lake.
I'd like to just, what you're stating in relation to funding, from what I understand, and this doesn't go just for like fire services and TTPS, this goes for most state enterprises and companies. Yes, there's an annual budget that is read in the Parliament by the Minister of Finance. But in terms of the funds being released to these companies, it is mostly funds that are slowly released. They're not even guaranteed to get the full budget. And most of the times it's only for recurring expenditures like payroll and office supplies and whatnot. And I think that's the point that the Fire Association president was making. From what I understand, that's a problem that they're having throughout all these state entities. It is just a trickle down of the funds that they're promised and it's stated in the budget, and they're not. It's for recurring expenditure.
Reoccurring expenditures. Then they need to rewrite the budget.
Yeah.
You know, because there are things that must be taken care of that should be taken care of by your department and not contracted out, because it's part of the job of doing business. And yes, it's throughout all the services, including the administrative services, which is a whole other story. But I don't want to hold you up. I just wanted to say, too, that I feel you when you were joyful when them two wretches get killed, because I had to say, Father, forgive me, but it's good. It's good for them.
Yeah.
Leave people alone. I don't know why these people are so miserable. Yeah. They're not the only ones suffering. Figure out something else to do with yourself than to go and terrorize people that are working hard for their money.
Yeah. Thank you, caller. Always good hearing from you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Have a good day, caller.
All right. Bye.
It is supposed to be Fantastic Friday, but there's not much good news. And in relation, I just want to quickly go back to what the caller from Tobago was stating. First of all, you're making the point that from a general perspective, fine, fair enough, it may be good to stamp all around. But that's not always the case, especially if, even if it's 10 years, individuals go through a lot. And people may not recognize or realize it. Even your own family may not notice it, may not see it, because again, in front of your face, you may be one thing. The wife, if she was being abused, she may have been too scared to tell her family, or the family may not have recognized it. And if he was being abused, it may not always be the case, because there's also a male stigma attached to this, of which a man has to be a man. And that's an issue that they've been facing all around in Trinidad and Tobago. If you notice, many other times, reports of domestic abuse and domestic violence, gender-based violence, surrounds women. You're right, there is a sympathy towards women. But many a times, reports against men are not highlighted, are not reported. There was an issue about 2 years ago in Tobago in which they tied up a man on the bed. 3 women tied him up on a bed and beat him. They beat him. Now, there are 2 sides to the story. We get that. But nothing was ever done about that. Nothing ever came out about it. You know, and it was just a small little block in the newspapers. No, and this is why there's a stigma attached to it.
The thing is, it could have been the husband being verbally abusive to the wife. It could have been the wife being verbally abusive to the husband. There's so much we don't know about the case. What we do know is that it happened, right? And there's obviously a reason behind it. It is very, 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 very unlikely that he just randomly decided one day, you know what, I'm just going to go crazy, and then, oops, I didn't mean it, and drink some poison. But yes, we don't know what we don't know, but at the end of the day, he did do the crime. That is what we do know.
He committed the act. Good morning, caller from Dico Martin.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Good morning.
Gosh, it's dark and gloomy in Dico Martin, just like everywhere. Are you all going to do our Friday trivia today?
To lighten things up, and then they show you the final call, so sure, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So is it K-I-E-V, Kiev, or K-Y-I-V, Kiev?
That's a trivia
thought
because
it was a totally different
no,
spelling
because
to
you see what you trick us, huh? But as far as it's being reported, and I didn't verify this, I just went with what The international headlines were going KYIV.
Sorry?
KYIV.
Right. Okay, Sean. No. Okay.
What
so
was
no
the
cheating, because
options?
I'm not
What was the
cheating.
options? What was the options?
All the options, Sean. What kind of answers are?
What was the first one? I can't remember what.
KYIZ or KYIV?
KIEV.
Okay.
Kiev,
So
or KYIV.
I always thought it was KIEV, but I'm seeing KYIV on every news article that I read.
What is it?
Okay. Okay. Cool. So the English say KIEV. Yes, you're right. You're seeing it everywhere because that's what the Russians use. But the Ukrainians would like people to use KYIV, which is Ukrainian.
Right.
Kiev. Like KEE-EEV.
So I got it correct then?
They want you to say Kiev, not Kiev.
Oh, the pronunciation. Okay, I got you. I got you.
Well, it's both, yeah.
Yeah,
because the Russians say Kiev.
Yeah, I got
and
you.
The Ukrainians say Kiev.
I think the problem
and
is.
you know, it's two different languages.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it
like
is.
all now,
Yeah.
well, even before, but particularly now, just to be more patriotic, the
Right.
bilingual Ukrainians are speaking more Ukrainian.
Since it was the USSR, I would assume that to the west, the Russian pronunciation was what was publicly given out more.
Yeah, Kiev, yeah. Okay, so next we've heard Zelensky ask his people to make Molotov cocktails, right? So do you know how that came about? The
Molotov
But
cocktails?
you know, it's the poor man's grenade made by filling the bottle with a flammable liquid with just the wick attached,
Yeah.
and of course you light it and you belt it.
Right.
So the irony of this is that the last time that was used was in 1941 by the Ukrainians as they defended themselves from Nazi Germany. But it got its name.
The irony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the Finns in the Winter War of 1939 between Finland and Russia. So it was used in reference to Vyacheslav Molotov, who was the Soviet foreign minister, and he was the key to the pact between Russia and Nazi Germany that defined the borders as we know them of Soviet and German influence over Finland, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia.
I did not know that, and I'm sure many people didn't know that. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, caller.
I think the irony there that Putin tried to use Nazism as one of his excuses, as one of his smoke screens. The irony, of course, is Molotov will once again be used against tyranny.
Anyway, that's all the time we have. As we're wrapping up the show, you will be hearing a song playing in the background. Hopefully you will be hearing that song playing in the background, and it's ironic that we chose this tune as well. As we wrap things up on a Friday. Sean and I, every Friday now, we're going to try and play a song, an old-time calypso, a local song. It doesn't have to be old-time for your entertainment and enjoyment. I'm not hearing it as yet, so perhaps we don't have it loaded on the system. But I suppose we could play it next week. What do you think, Sean? Next week?
I mean, that song is pertinent, but there it is. The man of the hour, I wonder who it is.
Take a good guess.
Is it the prophet himself, or is he a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Take a good guess.
Well, I know who it is.
Okay. Anyway, folks, isn't it ironic that we're choosing to play this song? There's a lot to speak about, Mr. Peters. We will not do that today. We will do that next week. We have a couple of questions for Mr. Peters. I just like to say, he had an interview with State Media earlier this week.
State Media
earlier this week. I went to look for the clip on both the State Media's social media page and their official YouTube account. The clip's not there anymore. The clip's not there anymore. I wonder why. Perhaps there was a conflict of interest.
Perhaps. No, there is, but I mean, he won't be the first one.
Anyway, folks,
it's not the first time.
As we wrap things up for this Friday, thank you very much to our caller from Diego Martin for Friday Trivia. We look forward to next week, and to all the callers for their contribution. It's a dark, damp, grey Friday, the least of a fantastic Friday. But as we wrap things up, please stay safe and keep well over the weekend. It's no longer COVID-19 that's the biggest threat. It is a huge threat, but as you can see what's taking place with home invasions and robberies, so secure yourself. Keep safe and keep well. Secure yourself as best as you can, Take absolute precautions. Be aware of your surroundings, and if you can, wherever you go, always let somebody know where you're going, and always keep in touch with someone. This is the times that we're living in, and it's unfortunate we have to do that, but I don't think we have a choice, Sean.
People, I'm just going to say this. Elected officials, they work for you. You don't work for them. So don't let them be inflicted upon you like a plague, right? Be more involved. Don't let it be done to you. Choose who you want to administer your assets, and that is this country.
We all have a role to play in absolutely everything. That's the position as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And folks, in dealing with situations, let's try to have more of an open mind. Please. It's not just what we want, but sometimes it's about what we need. And we need understanding. We really do. Anyway, folks, that's Mr. Shaw Michael Small. To my left, I'm Keaton Shaw, wishing you all the very best this weekend. And Godspeed, God bless. Hopefully we'll see you again on Monday morning. Bye-bye.
Day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all.